When does a body stop being a person? 25 centuries ago, in the city of Savatthi, there was a monastery in the grove of Jetavana, where the Buddha and his disciples lived through the long rains. In one of the cells of that monastery was a monk named Tissa. His body had begun to break open with sores, and the brothers had begun to call him by another name, Pūtigatta, the foul-bodied. This story is preserved in the Dhammapada Commentary by Buddhaghosa in his gloss on the 41st verse, with the verse itself preserved in the Dhammapada, from which the commentary draws its name. It is one of the strangest stories in the canon, because the man at the center of it had been left to die by the brothers who had taken vows beside him, and because on the morning this story takes place, the most revered being in the order walked into his cell with a kettle of hot water. To understand why the kettle mattered, you have to understand what his body had become. He had come to the monastery as many young men had come. He had taken the robe at Jetavana, in the same grove given by the merchant Anathapindika. He had been given a bowl, a place, a name. He had sat with the others in the open hall when the Buddha gave instruction. He had walked the alms round at dawn with a line of saffron-robed brothers and returned in the late morning with what the village householders had given. He was a monk. He had a body that worked and a robe that fit, and a place in the line that walked the road in the morning. The cell at the end of the row was his. The bowl on the wooden shelf was his. The patched robe that hung on the peg was his. He was a monk among monks for a time. The first boils were small, mustard seeds sized, on the back of one shoulder. They itched. He scratched at them in the heat of the day with the corner of his folded robe, and he kept walking the alms round, and he did not say anything to anyone. By the next moon, the boils on his shoulder had grown. They were the size of a small bean. There were more of them now, on his shoulder, on his upper arm, beginning to form across the line of his collarbone. He sat in the cell, in the evening, and looked at his arm, and he did not know what was happening. By the next moon, the boils were the size of a chickpea. They were on his back. They were on his thighs. They were beginning to form on his face. By the next moon, they had begun to break open. When the boils broke open, the skin where they had been held, the wet, the cloth that lay against that skin, the cotton of the robe worn close, soaked it. By the time he came to lift the robe at evening, it would not lift. The cloth had stuck to the breaks in the skin. The lifting of the robe was the lifting of the skin with it. He took to leaving the robe on. He took to sleeping in it. He took to walking the alms round in it. And the smell of the cloth and the body in the cloth went with him down the road. And the householders who had once put rice in his bowl began to look the other way as the line passed. He began to come back from the alms round with an empty bowl. He began to stay in the cell. He no longer joined the line. The smell filled the cell. The cell at the end of the row stood with its door closed. In the early days of the disease, when he had still been able to walk, the brothers from the next cell had brought him a portion of their own alms when he had come back with an empty bowl. They had set it at his door. They had said his name as they set it down. Then a week, and the portion was set at the door, and his name was not said. Then a week, and the portion was smaller. Then a week, and the portion was set at the door of the cell next to his, and the brother who had been bringing it walked past Tissa's door without slowing. The smell from the cell at the end of the row was strong by then. The brothers in the cells nearest to it had asked the eldest if they might move. They had been moved. The cell next to his sat empty. The cell on the other side sat empty. The row of doors that had once opened in the morning, all together, opened now without his, and the door did not open. And the door did not open. And the door did not open. The light came in at the small window above the door in the morning and moved slowly across the cell as the day turned and went out at the same window as the sun went down. Day and night and day. He could not always tell anymore when one was passing into the next. The light at the window changed. The light at the window did not change. He lay on the wooden plank that was his bed with the robe that had become a part of him and the body that had become a thing he watched from a distance, and he waited. He had thought in the early weeks that someone would come. He had thought in the middle weeks that one of the older monks who had given him his bowl when he was ordained might come. He had thought in the later weeks that the brothers would at least open the door to confirm whether he was alive. The door did not open. Day and night and day. He listened to the line of feet going past in the morning, on their way to the alms round. He listened to the line of feet returning. He listened to the bell that called the brothers to the open hall. He listened to the silence after. He did not move from the plank. He could not. The robe had bonded to the skin, and the skin had bonded to the plank, and the body that had once walked the alms road had become a thing fixed. Day and night and day. The fly at the window, the dust on the floor, the sound of the wind in the bamboo grove of Jetavana beyond the wall. No one came. The Buddha's morning began in the same way every morning. Before the line of brothers walked to the village for alms, he sat for a stretch of time in the open hall at Jetavana, and he opened the eye that saw across the grove and across the city and across the long roads that ran out into the wild country. It is recorded in the canon that he did this each day, that what he was doing was looking for the person in the world, anywhere in the world, who was ready that morning to be reached. This morning the eye opened and went past the line of brothers walking the alms road. It went past the householders waking in the streets of Savatthi. It went past the king in his palace. It came to the cell at the end of the row. It stopped. He rose from the place where he had been sitting. He did not call for Ananda first. He did not send a message to the eldest. He went on his own feet to the kitchen at the back of the monastery, where the cooking pot stood and the hearth fire was kept, and he picked up a clay kettle. He filled it from the water jar. He set it on the hearth, over the small fire that was always kept. He waited while the water came to a heat, not boiling, but enough to ease a body and not burn it. While he waited, he sent for Ananda. When Ananda came, the Buddha said, "A brother at the end of the row is in pain. Come, we will wash him." Ananda did not ask which brother. He did not need to. He had heard the brothers complain of the smell. He had been moved from his own cell to be further from it. He bowed and went. The Buddha and Ananda walked across the courtyard, the kettle between them, in the long, pale light of the morning. They came to the cell at the end of the row. The Buddha opened the door himself. The brother on the plank did not lift his head. He had not lifted his head in many days. The smell came up from the cell as the door swung wide. The Buddha did not flinch. Ananda did not flinch. They went in. They lifted the plank, with the brother on it, slowly, and carried it out into the courtyard, into the sun. The Buddha set the plank down. He took warm water from the kettle in his cupped hands, and he poured it on the robe that had bonded to the skin. The robe slowly came loose. The water cooled. They brought more. He poured slowly in patient handfuls until the cloth lifted away in pieces, and the body beneath it came uncovered. The water cooled. They brought more. He poured warm water onto the breaks in the skin. The skin, slowly, came clean. He did not rush. He did not speak. His hands moved as the hands of someone tending a small thing that had been overlooked. Ananda took the soiled robe and washed it at the water jar at the edge of the courtyard. He laid it in the sun. The water cooled. They brought more. The Buddha washed the body again. He washed the face. He washed the arms. He washed the legs. He washed the feet. When he was done, the body on the plank was clean, the robe in the sun, drying. The Buddha sat at the head of the plank. The brother on the plank had opened his eyes. The Buddha sat in silence for a long moment, the way he sat in the open hall at the start of instruction. Then he spoke, quietly, without raising his voice, as one man saying a true thing to another. He said, "Before long, this body will lie upon the earth, cast aside without breath, like a useless log." The brother on the plank heard the words. The words did not come down from above him. They did not arrive as instruction or as comfort. They named what was already happening, what was already true of the body he had been watching from a distance for many weeks. He drew one breath, slowly. He let it out. He did not draw another. The Buddha sat at the head of the plank a little longer. Then he closed his eyes. The cremation was done that afternoon. The brothers who had not opened his door came out of their cells. They built the pyre at the edge of the grove. They watched the smoke until it was gone. After, in the open hall, the Buddha said one more thing. He said it briefly, the way a chronicler notes a fact. Buddhaghosa records it. He had once been a fowler. He had broken the legs of birds. The fowler had grown old. The body had grown old. The body had been laid down. And in the body that came after, the breaking that the birds had carried in their bones had come back to him. He had once been a fowler. He had broken the legs of birds. The chronicler does not say more. The body that had been Tissa, the body that had been the foul-bodied, the body the Buddha had washed, the robe drying in the sun,